Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday the 3rd of August 2021. I'll call for apologies, and we do have an apology registered for Councillor Branthwaite, which has previously been resolved, and we have Councillor O'Grady dialling in online. So thank you, Councillor O'Grady, up on the screen, and all other councillors are here and present. So the next item on the agenda, councillors, is the messages of condolence. Do we have any messages of condolence? No messages of condolence. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is prior notifications of conflicts of interest. Brooke, do we have any prior notifications? Councillors, nothing you would like to raise this morning? Thank you, councillors. And the next item on the agenda is the Mayor's statement on current issues. And firstly, can I say how good it is to be back in the council chambers in Gundoon Street. So obviously with COVID last year, we moved to the Gladstone Entertainment Convention Centre, and I'd like to thank the staff and the team up there for hosting us for over 12 months now. So it's good to be back here in the back here in the council chambers, and we have all the new technology so we can live stream from the chambers to the world for everyone who's listening, especially those people in the Gladstone region. The next council meeting, which will be the third Tuesday in August, will be opening back to the gallery as well. So it'll be fantastic to have our friends back in, whether it's John and Tex and Phil and whoever else would like to come and visit. The gallery will be open, provided everything remains the same with the COVID situation in Queensland. So hopefully we'll have a public gallery again, but obviously we have the public gallery live on the internet as well. I'd just like to mention a couple of events across the region in the past fortnight and coming up. We had, of course, the very successful Relay for Life on Saturday the 24th of July, and thank you, Councillor Churchill, for organising the Gladstone Region Council Champions for the cause. So well done, and everyone who was involved in Relay for Life this year, and the money they raised for the Queensland Cancer Council. They've done a fantastic job. We also have coming up is the Benarabi Twilight Fair, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday the 13th of August. Make sure you get down and support Benarabi there. That's one of their biggest fundraisers for the school each year. The Queensland Symphony Orchestra, Symphony Under the Stars, is on Friday the 27th of August, and it'll be a huge night there at the Marina Stage. And the Port to Park coming up on Sunday the 15th of August. You can still register for the Port to Park. So I know councillors are getting involved in the water station, and I'm doing the run with Pinky from Triple M. So anybody else who wants to get involved, please register for that event. And Councillor Goodluck will be happy to hear, obviously, plug for BAM this weekend at Millennium Esplanade. Good to see that event happening at Boyne Tanham again. So some events happening in central Queensland, obviously some lockdowns in southeast Queensland and in New South Wales and Victoria. So hopefully in central Queensland we can remain COVID safe and we can continue to live the life we are used to here in CQ. Thank you, councillors. I have no further business for the Mayor's statement. I'll move to the next item, which is the confirmation of the minutes. And G2.1 is the confirmation of the general meeting minutes for the 20th of July. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Seconded, Councillor Hanson. Is there any business arising? No business arising. I put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. The next item on the agenda is our officers' reports, and the first officers' report is G3.1, the Gladstone Region Economic Development Strategy 2021-2025, and I welcome General Manager of Strategy and Transformation Carly Quinn and our Economic Development Specialist Gary Scanlon to the table. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Council. So this report recommends endorsement of Council's new economic development strategy, which has been developed to take us through to 2025. Noting, of course, that regular reviews will occur during this time to ensure that we stay aligned with our changing internal and external environments. An internal working group's been driving the project since late last year, which includes SMEs from across the business. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our internal working group, which consists of our Economic Development Specialist, our project lead, Gary Scanlon, Sarah Hunter from Strategy, Erickson Noakes from Strategic Projects, Helen Robertson from Planning and Development, Kim Roberts from Tourism and Events, Lee Griffiths and Kenia Schmidt from Community Engagement. The strategy replaces the existing one that was developed in 2015, and as we found with our corporate plan refresh, the current climate compelled us to review its content and refocus our direction in light of new emerging trends such as COVID-19, revised population forecasts, etc. for our region. In doing that, we considered the importance of supporting the growing existing industries, as well supporting and growing existing industries, as well as exploring opportunities from new and emerging industries as well. The new plan aligns closely with Council's recently endorsed corporate plan with a vision to connect, innovate and diversify, and the topic is specifically called out in the corporate plan under Goal 3, Resilient Economy. Our corporate plan defines that goal as we play our part in supporting the success of our region. This was a really important parameter for us to consider in developing the strategy. We can't be everything to everyone, and we need to play our part with the resources we have and really use partnerships, collaboration and advocacy to achieve our goals. Our new strategy is already, and will continue to do so, influence our annual operational plans each year, which in turn gets us closest to our corporate goals. An extensive period of community engagement, including both targeted engagement, workshops with economic development specialists, business groups, industry groups, right across the region, executive leadership team, internal SMEs, councillors, and a wider community engagement program via workshop surveys and invitations for feedback has been conducted. And the initial consultation led to the Growing the Region report that's attached to today's report, and that informs our strategy. As with most strategies, there was always a lot of great ideas and opportunities, and these need to be tested against what's really achievable so that we don't end up with a document that sits on a shelf and is never achieved. The purpose of our strategy was to be visionary and yet also a practical plan of action to help promote and support the Gladstone region economic development now and into the future. To this end, our working group used a series of criteria to prioritise all the identified opportunities, resulting in the plan on a page strategy. The strategy was then consulted again with Council in June and followed up with a final round of consultation with the community to test where it landed. And that feedback is included in today's report. As is our current process, reporting will occur quarterly to Council, commencing in September with a closeout report on our current strategy and an initial report on our new strategy. We'll also be working towards getting more visibility to our community of this activity through regular community updates. I commend the consultant and working group on developing a plan on a page that's actionable, achievable and reportable, and recommend the report to you for endorsement. And we also have our project lead, Gary Scanlon, here today to take any specific questions on the content of the report, of the plan or the process undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Questions to Carly or to Gary, please. Councillor Churchill.
I know I won't have any questions after Councillor Churchill's gone, I think.
I'll take that as a compliment, Councillor Hanson, but I'll hopefully be able to leave some for you. Probably first and foremost, congratulations to everybody. I'm sure that everyone around the table here will share the same sentiment. Well done. It's exemplary, it's visionary, but also I think at the same time it's a bit inspiring as well. So I just want to make a couple of comments through you, Mayor Matt, and appropriately as the previous chair of the Gladstone Region Economic Partnership and GRED, so part of this will be constructive, but also as part of that I need to offer a little bit of aspects of criticism, or maybe we just get some level of clarification on a couple of key points. It's great that you've got 18 key initiatives that cover that, and I'll come back to that particular point. But in there you talk about partnerships and alliances between council, government, regional development, and the list goes on appropriately. I'd just like to get an understanding, when we talk about economic development, our community service obligations and our community service organisations. We have a number of organisations in this region, Rotary, Lions, Apex, and the list goes on, progress associations, and I'll use Turkey Beach Progress Association as a prime example. So where do they fit within the partnerships and alliances, because every day, every week, they are doing economic development. It may not appear to be the big end of town of economic development, but they're delivering community events, they're delivering aspects that I believe that add a benefit to the region. So I'd just love to note that particular point. Where do our community service organisations fit within the scheme of this new strategy?
Thanks, Councillor Churchill. I think the answer to that one is that each of these plans we were careful for some early feedback to make sure that all of our plans linked. So our community development plan is very important in this aspect as well. That deals with a lot of those organisations, and I agree with you 100%. All these service organisations, community service obligations, and the events and the activities that they run all lead to economic development. And it's probably, this strategy is probably at the higher level of economic development, but then it links and it complements the community development strategy and other strategies as well, where a lot of that grassroots community activity or grassroots community interaction is dealt with, and then all feeds up into overall community development. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's fine, as long as they're not forgotten, because they are integral in the smaller areas, especially around the region.
I think we talk about in the wider report. We talk about events and community events and opportunities in the wider occasion. So we've just prioritised the 18 initiatives as opposed to having all 39.
That's right. As long as there's not and I know we fund a number of these projects, as long as it's not forgotten that they're the ones it's the people that are the asset. They're at the grassroots level doing it. The other one on page 2. It's a chestnut that I've raised previously with our corporate plan. I raised it with our annual report, and I'll raise it again today, Matt, is, there's a map sitting in there on page 2, and we talk about our region, 500 kilometres north of Brisbane, 10,500 square kilometres, and we talk about the vast landscape and regional centres and townships. We just seem to have forgot the islands of the southern Great Barrier Reef, the Heron Island, Lady Musgrave. I still believe that they should, and I continue to emphasise. I suppose with Heron as an example, there are jobs over there. There's a UQ, University of Queensland Research Centre, and the list goes on. So they are very much a contextual part of economic development, and I would hope that perhaps, in your consideration, I'm totally supportive of the recommendation today, but surely we can't overlook the islands that are integral to the economic benefits of our region.
Gary, before you answer that, the islands and the Southern Great Barrier Reef are a significant inclusion in our corporate plan, so they certainly have never been overlooked and would never be overlooked, but I'm sure Gary can add to that.
Oh, I never said that they were overlooked. They just seem to have been left off again, and I've had to raise that twice on 2 previous reports, so hopefully it's a simple exercise.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Churchill. On your previous advice, we have rectified our oversights previously, and will do on this occasion as well. So the islands are very important to us in the economic development sense. So we'll fix that map up on page 2 and get that fixed before it goes up.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Page 10, page 11, and I did a spell check, or more so a word search, when I'm looking for the beef industry. As you would know, Gladstone region has a huge beef industry and a rural sector, and when I go through on that search engine for beef, doesn't come up. Cattle, nil, and then the only time rural appears is in rural townships and rural villages. So I'd just like to get a clarification in that blueprint for regional prosperity as where the beef or the rural industry, rural production appears in our economic development strategy.
So we lump that all in together with agribusiness, because agribusiness is only about $87 million a year in the region. So that includes agriculture, horticulture, broad agriculture, all those sorts of products. I think for the beef industry, Councillor Churchill, the most important thing that we can do there is focus on supply chains. And we have been focusing on supply chains through our Beef Roads advocacy program with other regional councils as well. That was launched at the Beef Week last year in Rocky, and that's ongoing, looking at the advocacy. I think one of the greatest inhibitors is the lack of enabling infrastructure in terms of the beef industry and transporting beasts around and other finished products and that as well. So that sort of falls under our enabling the infrastructure, fostering and helping that along. I think that's the best thing we can do for the beef industry at the moment.
So perhaps in terminology that it appears in the report, we've actually got everything listed as agriculture, and I consider agriculture, if you look at the definition of agriculture, appropriately doesn't include the beef industry. Maybe we could change the wording to agribusiness, as you've rightly espoused, and then that would be all-encompassing for any type of farming or any type of rural production in agribusiness, because even in the graphs it doesn't mention the beef industry, it doesn't mention the cattle industry, so a point for consideration. I suppose a learning from the past, and as I said there before, it's pleasing to see you've got an implementation plan, and one of the key points was in the failings of the previous partnership and the previous economic development strategy was the lack of collaboration, or more so the sharing of collateral and the sharing of intellectual property. And I know Councillor Hanson and be it others that were on that particular group, is that reluctance to share. Do you think we've been able to overcome that inhibitor now with not only with this strategy but the board or the groups that you've got working together?
I think, Councillor Churchill, I acknowledge that has been an issue in the past, but I think Gladstone and Team Gladstone at the moment is doing a really good job, particularly getting behind some of our key initiatives, inland rail, hydrogen, renewable energy, and development of the region. We've got the Economic Development Practitioners Network that meets on a regular basis and is doing some good work. We've got CQH2, which is the hydrogen cluster. We've got CQH2 Ecosystem Alliance, which is the alliance dealing with development of hydrogen, and the CQH2 ecosystem as well. And I often talk about our show bag, and our show bag was a little bit empty for a while, but at the moment our show bag's looking pretty good with collateral from each of our stakeholder organisations, from ours as well. And I think the story for Gladstone and our Team Gladstone approach is really aligned and doing well at the moment.
Great, thanks for that. And I know others want to ask questions as well. I do have one more pertinent one, I suppose, is that it's good to see that aged care or age-friendly community has been included in there, but it brings about the issue in the economic development report, and I congratulate SGS and others and everybody that's contributed to it, but it mentions this on a number of occasions: liaison with ongoing basis with state and federal funding agencies, not only for the tourism industry but for community infrastructure, priority community infrastructure. And when we're relying on state and federal governments for their funding, can I just ask, how do you believe our economic development strategy, or maybe it's a question to Madam CEO, how will that strategy, when we constantly rely on state and federal government's commitment to fund these types of projects, how does that link to our own long-term financial plan, so that we don't end up going off course at the whims of a state or federal government requirement, or during an election cycle, that we stay on track with what we're focused on with the 30+ recommendations?
I'm happy to speak, Councillor Churchill. Carly may want to add, but as you're aware, we've been working very hard on our strategic grants capacity, and there's some very good relationships and collaborative work happening to make sure that the grants that we seek are enabling the plans that we have in place and the priorities that we already have, so not to be a distraction from our focus. So where we have opportunity to leverage off these programs to enable us to deliver more than we could on our own, we certainly take advantage of those opportunities. But Carly may want to add to that. It's certainly about supporting what the priorities are that have been identified, and that'll be reflected in our updated long-term financial plan as well. But you may want to add to that, Carly.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'd add is with our strategic priorities, we're actually developing funding strategies for each of those. So this is one element, and Rowena and our business and Gary work really closely together often to ensure that whilst Gary is obviously pushing the economic barrow and he's got this strategy to follow, that our strategic priorities are aligned and that we have options for funding. It's not just relying on that. So we want to look far and wide and have a look at what opportunities there are to fund each and every one of our strategies or each and every one of our priorities. And as opportunities arise, we've got those levers to pull and say, okay, if we get funding for this, what does it do to the rest? And so it's part of a bigger picture. It's one big program, not done in isolation.
All right, thank you for that. I feel comforted by that. I've got a few more, but I won't, because Councillor Hanson will have them.
Thanks, Councillor Churchill. Before I go to Councillor Hanson, I'll just help answer one of your questions in regards to beef. I'm obviously on the Beef Corridors Committee with many of our regional mayors around regional Western Queensland, which is encouraging the development and infrastructure improvements from west like Blackall, Tambo, Barcaldine, and all the way through Central Highlands, Banana Shire into Gladstone. And if you see point 1 on our strategy on a page, it's to encourage investment through support for the delivery of enabling infrastructure and catalyst project opportunities. And 1.1 is support the development of supply chain mapping, which is exactly what this is all about, through CSIRO transport studies to address key regional freight tasks and infrastructure shortfalls. So these are the sorts of things that will help our beef and agricultural industry. The next one is to identify and articulate the Gladstone region's transport and infrastructure priorities, including the Gladstone region heavy vehicle transport corridor. That's where the IQ wrap comes important. So we're definitely working with our primary producers, not just in the beef industry, but in agriculture altogether, and particularly working with our neighbours around Central Queensland. So that should help answer that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree with you, Mayor Matt. I just think that we could change agriculture to agribusiness, and I think that becomes all-encompassing. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill. Councillor Hanson.
I've only got the one, Mr Mayor, and very happy to support the strategy. Well done. I'm just interested in the continual evolution of the enactment of the plan, because we haven't had that in the past. Page 9 of 48, it mentions very briefly their monitoring and the implementation progress. Setting performance measures are very important. I know you're doing that. What processes do we have to review the strategy in the future? And I see it's yearly in there. Are there any other processes around there? And I'd like to see the strategy, I'd like to use the strategy and utilise the strategy and modify and not have to develop one every 3 or 4 years. And I think that's very important that we can use the strategy like that. So it's just a comment.
I realise it wasn't a question, but I do want to commend Gary and the working group for moving towards a plan on a page, because we don't want to keep reinvesting large dollars and large amounts of time every 3 or so years doing these deep dives. We've done a really good deep dive. We've done a lot of work with the community. Now we need to stay in touch with the community. We need to make sure that we are continually having a view of the internal and external trends, and then we're just doing that desktop review each year. If we keep in touch with the community and all of the great work that Gary's done in getting these networks and these working groups to work together, we will continually have that knowledge coming into it, and we don't have to do all of this large work every 4 or 5 years.
Thank you.
Very happy with that, and I hope there was no inference regarding the GREDs that I was on the GREDs and I wouldn't share. Is that an
Definitely
inference,
no, definitely
Councillor?
no inference.
Oh, no, definitely not, Councillor Hanson. I know you might be a tongue-in-cheek, but no, when we're dealing with organisations themselves and there's commercial sensitivity, but as we said there before, this economic development strategy, we are all in this together. We're all in it together. You know, when we deal with other statutory bodies, there's a level of reluctance to share information for the benefit of our region. You would have witnessed that, Councillor Hanson. Not from you, though.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I can assure you that there is no reluctance to share anymore. It's certainly working out. Team Gladstone is fantastic. The GEA, the GCCI, GAPDL Council, Guild, all working together in harmony. I see Councillor O'Grady has her hand up online, and is that the Boyne, Burn and Inland Rail Trail in the background there, Councillor O'Grady?
Most certainly, Mr Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Now, Gary, just a question to you. My concern is, with the community survey feedback, we only got 20 people. So do you think that's enough to gauge for the community or not?
Thank you, Councillor. The response I got from people that know about these things was that's a sort of a mid-range response after we've done the wide-ranging engagement and the conversations. Pleasingly, in the responses we got, were a lot of them were people that hadn't engaged with us previously. So what we suspect is that people who have engaged with us previously, looked at the study, didn't feel to raise any need or any other issues, which is hopefully a tacit endorsement. And then we got the majority of the people that provided feedback hadn't previously engaged with us before. So I'm pretty comfortable that we've collected all the feedback that's out there and that we need to. And I think if we were left of centre or not on the money, I think we certainly would have had a stronger response by now.
Great, thanks for that, Gary. Yeah, no, it's a great document. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks, Gary and Carly and your team for doing this. I have attended a few of the community consultation sessions, and I have seen community members from little, medium and big size organisations and businesses. So I will be very happy to support this recommendation. So I would like to move it to, if that will be okay. And I also look forward to those reports that will come to see, how we travelling. I think that it is very important that we keep to the original intent, which is to report on these strategies. We have seen a number of strategies sitting on the shelf that we embark on these exercises and talk to everybody, but then they sit there and we don't go back to it. There's another agenda item later on today that also reflects some of the things that we're looking at in the economic development space, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, hopefully, do you have any ideas to when we'll have the next review or sort of report? And would that be done publicly, or as in for community? You also talked about different types of updating community as in the progress of the strategy. So.
Yeah, so Gary will continue to provide a quarterly update to councillors, as is currently the case. In September, you'll see the first one, which will close out the current strategy and give you an introduction to the activity in the new strategy. Bearing in mind there's a lot of crossover, we're already doing a lot of this stuff. The stuff that's in this current strategy has been commenced. We're not waiting for the adoption to start some of this good work. But we have also been talking about how we get visibility to the community and what that actually looks like. And we were just talking about it this morning. And there is a lot of activity that council is involved in this space. And we acknowledge that we're probably not giving the best visibility to the community on some of that great work yet, and sharing all of those good stories. So that's our next goal, to make sure that we're getting that visibility in the right way. They may not need to see the detailed sort of 1.1 actions and things like that, but what are the good stories? What are the outcomes? What is the benefit for me as a ratepayer? Those are the kinds of stories we're going to start sharing.
That's great, because it is something that I guess we're too busy doing things, but we should also take a little bit of time to share with everyone else the great things that are happening already, and not just in this space, but in other areas. So if you're okay, I'd like to move that we endorse the Gladstone Region Economic Development Strategy.
Yep, happy to. I have other councillors who'd like to ask questions, but I have a mover, so can I get a seconder before I go to those other councillors, please? Seconded, Councillor Churchill. And now I'll go back to Councillor Goodluck, who has a question.
Thanks, Gary. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I really love this body of work, and it's been a long journey with lots of consultation and lots of planning and work put into it, and it's really good to be able to see that this will be in the public domain, so that anyone out there who's interested in what council's strategic direction is and what the priorities are can jump on and have a look for themselves. So it gives the community good insights to that. And just quickly, obviously manufacturing, big part of the strategy as well. Advanced manufacturing, attracting new industries, diversifying our economy. We've got tourism, we've got all the key pillars in there. There was one part that I noted in the theme to support the capacity of business and industry in the Gladstone region to prosper in a post-carbon economy, and we've noted in there the Queensland government adopting a 50% renewable energy and 2050 net zero emissions target. And we should also note that even Rio Tinto, the biggest employer in the region, has publicly adopted the net zero emissions by 2050. So when we talk about post-carbon economies, or we talk about transition, it's not forgetting or moving on from the current jobs or the current industries that we've got. It's absolutely about maintaining everything that we've got here. And we know Rio Tinto, for example, has got big commitments with large spends and investments to make sure that they can still be operating here in that post-carbon economy, post-2050, but we can't expect them to do it all on their own. So it's about us making sure that we're working with them collaboratively to protect those jobs and ensure that we're still here in 2050, and making sure that we're advocating with them to make sure we've got that right balance in the future. So it's a really good body of work, and I'm happy to support it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Church or Councillor Cameron or Trevor, or no? Councillor Cameron.
Just one comment. Yes, it was a good read. It's a good document. Thank you, Gary. But when I read it with a more general overview with it. I didn't go into specifics like Councillor Churchill has, but I take your points were well made and well picked up. But yes, a great body of work, and I'm very happy to support it today too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor? No? Back to you, Councillor Church. We had another question.
Yeah, look, thanks for that. I think we're just trying to deal with the modern day aspect. It was pleasing in the report that we note that the wording, the Port of Gladstone is a key strategic asset underpinning economic success. And when we talk about that particular part of our economic future, it brings about what's unfolding out there in the world at the moment with this COVID pandemic, and to identify, and probably goes back to Councillor Hanson's point there before we get the quarterly updates, but I'm hoping that this economic development strategy is fluid enough, because out there at the moment we've got economic disruption that's occurring as a result of the COVID pandemic. So, and it could have long-lasting effects, or there may be opportunities that might arise as a result of it that perhaps have not been identified, because when we went on this journey to develop the strategy, COVID wasn't part of the topic. It is very much a part of the topic now. So I'd just like to get your expert opinion in your area of the likelihood of any broader structural changes that might occur, short-term, medium-term, long-term, that we don't know of, and how fluid are we enough with this strategy, even though we're going to adopt it today, how fluid is it enough to be able to move if something does happen, negative or positive?
Well, thank you, Councillor Churchill. I think with any good economic development strategy, it needs to be agile enough to move with the economic change in the region. And we're seeing a lot of economic change in our region, and we'll continue to see a lot of economic change nationally and in our region through the life of the strategy. You just got to look at the COVID impacts. That's one thing, but the emergence of the post-carbon economy and transition economy, the hydrogen industry is accelerating all the time, renewable energy is accelerating all the time, the change in our energy mix, and trying to maintain our industrial heritage is critical and vital in our economic development strategy. If a strategy can't be agile and it can't move with the economic parameters and the economic changes in the region, then I'd be concerned. We're going to review it every year annually, a significant review, an overall review, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't change tack a little if the economic environment or the economic ecosystem requires it. And we'll see a lot of that. I'm positive we'll see a lot of that with the quickening of the demand for renewable energy around the world. We've seen hydrogen demand in the 2030s, forecast for the 2030s. We're now seeing it being brought forward to the late 2020s and prior to 2030. So that's something that we'll need to be agile with, and as a region, and take advantage of that. Lots of regions will want to be hydrogen centres, but there's very few can be a hydrogen hub, and that's what Gladstone does well. It does big stuff, big exports and big production well. So we'll see Gladstone emerge through the life of this strategy to that hydrogen hub.
So part of that could be to make the move to our region for our livability.
Always plenty of opportunity in our region, Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I'll just add a comment. I think it's a fantastic strategy as well. I particularly like it on one page. It's a lot easier for most people to read, to be able to say, here's our strategy, and they'll take it, especially if you're walking corridors in George Street or in Canberra. You can hand them the page. By the time they get out of the elevator, they've got a bit of an idea of what the strategy is for the Gladstone region. Can I say we're very fortunate having one of the world's greatest ports, and that's what's going to continue to drive our economy. All the industry and all the agriculture, all the mining and and all the small businesses and everything will continue to develop and grow because we have this amazing port. And it must be the envy of many around Australia, around the world, to have that port. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Peter Crone, the chairman of the Gladstone Ports Corporation, former mayor of the Gladstone region, doing a fantastic job up there. So I have a mover in Councillor Muscat and a seconder in Councillor Churchill. I'll put that motion. All in favour? Councillor O'Grady, the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is G3.2, tender for RPQS 213-21 Trade Services, Fleet Maintenance. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Operations, John Tumbers, and the Manager of Contracts and Procurement, Christy Wachner. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, councillors. This report asks for Council to endorse the recommendation to appoint 9 service providers on a register of pre-qualified suppliers and enter into contract with those vendors. The vendors are to provide fleet maintenance services and are listed in the report. The vendors are used to supplement GRC internal fleet maintenance staff, but more specifically around specialised services such as panel repairs, auto electrical, glass repairs and the like. Council released an invitation to tender and received 12 conforming offers. The tender evaluation panel has recommended to award to 9 of these providers based on the anticipated services and overall value presented to Council. So with that, I'll open for questions.
Thank you, John. Questions, councillors? No questions. That's very easy. Move, Councillor Hanson, or a question?
Happy to move.
Yeah. Move, Councillor Hanson. Second, Councillor Goodluck. Put the motion. All in favour? Thank you, Councillor O'Grady. All in favour? That's carried. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is another tender, 103-21 Roadworks and Associated Services. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report seeks approval to enter into contract with 12 service providers as part of a register of pre-qualified suppliers for the provision of roadworks and associated services. Similar to the fleet, these services are supplementary to GRC and generally focus on the specific and specialised services required for road making. Our council went to tender and received 12 conforming tenders. All tenders have been recommended following the evaluation process and present best value for council. The vendors are listed in the report. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thanks, John. Questions, councillors? No questions. Have a mover, please. Move, Councillor Cameron. Seconded, Councillor O'Grady. Thank you. Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried. Next item on the agenda is G3.4, the Next Economy Specialised Supplier. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I note that Gary Scanlon is still here to help answer questions specifically on the topic as opposed to the process. So this report seeks resolution from Council to make use of the local government regulations not requiring written quotes or tenders. This is due to the specialised nature of the services sought. We wish to enter into a contract with the Next Economy to support the development of Council's transition economy strategy. The Next Economy are considered to be leaders in economic planning and support of regional areas in such work. I'll open for questions for Gary.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm prepared to move the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
Can I get a second before now I have a mover? Second and Councillor Goodluck, and then Councillor Muscat has a question.
It's not necessarily a question, but it's just a... we worked with the Next Economy in the past, and we had a really good experience, I think. Well, I speak for myself anyway. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but where we have an approach that actually values the current way in which we do business and values very much the way we used to do it, and also continues to see how we're going to do it in the future, but not in a divisive way, but incorporating what's great from before and what's great to come as well. So we look forward to working with them again. Thank you.
They're experts in their field, and I think Gary Scanlon's been grilled enough this morning.
Not sure he has. Is there any further questions, councillors? Gary, would you like to add anything? Thank you, Gary. Okay. No further comments or questions. I have a mover in Councillor Churchill and second in Councillor Goodluck, I believe. Do you have a question? Yes.
Thank you. Absolutely support it, and I agree with Councillor Muscat. The work that we've done with the Next Economy previously has been really good. Just wanted to clarify in the report there, just about stating the work includes identifying ways to manage the closure of major industries to reduce the impact on community. That for anyone who might be reading or wondering, that's in the worst case scenario, and the idea is obviously the best way to mitigate those impacts is to make sure it doesn't happen within the best of our ability. So that's certainly what that body of work is about. Once again, it's trying to maintain that industrial heritage, as we spoke about in the economic development strategy, making sure that that we're still the industrial capital of the country in decades to come. That wording might just confuse maybe someone if they were reading it, that's all. But I absolutely support it and look forward to seeing this work come through. It's going to be really good stuff, and it's really focusing on the vision and the future of our region and where we want to position ourselves so that future generations have got filled with opportunities. So thank you.
Okay. No further questions. Councillors, I already have a mover and a seconder. I'll put the motion. All in favour. The motion is carried. Then thank you, John. Thank you, Christy. Next item on the agenda is G3.5, the LGAQ Annual Conference, motions for debate. And I'll hand to the General Manager, Strategy and Transformation, Carly Quinn. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you. Morning, Council again. So each year the Local Government Association of Queensland, known as LGAQ, invites submissions from member councils of motions to be debated at the annual conference. That's being held this year in Mackay from the 25th to the 27th of October. Any motions submitted to the conference must first be endorsed by the relevant council, which is the purpose of today's report. Councillor Muscat has provided content for a proposed motion and worked with our Manager of Strategy Improvement, Sarah Hunter. In relation to encouraging diversity in local government representation, the draft motion submission is provided as an attachment. The officer's recommendation, if resolved, will allow the business to submit this motion to LGAQ by the due date on the 16th of August. And I'd just like to invite Councillor Muscat to provide any further content in relation to the proposed motion.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. I was just wondering, the attachments are available for the public to see anyway. These are not. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will invite people to read the background. I mean, there's a few things to say. I don't want to reread what's already there, but this is a motion that is also close to my heart, as in I'm probably one of those people that I'm talking about encouraging to run for office and to represent their constituents in all different ways, shapes and forms. So this motion calls to the state government to address and do something about removing or addressing some of the barriers that exist for people from different backgrounds or that stops them from actually engaging in the democratic process that we have. So we know that representation of people, Indigenous people, from people with disabilities, culturally and linguistically diverse people, and even women still not as representative of what the real community looks like. So it's just calling on the state government to look at ways of addressing that and try to remove those barriers. So we have a fairer representation in decision-making forums like this one. And also understanding that if we look around and we look at the news or history, local government is a place in which, other representatives move to. So they go from here to state government, federal government, like we have our mayor, for example, as a perfect example of someone moving from local government into other leadership roles, and not just within government, but also non-government organisations and advocacy groups. So I would like to have my fellow councillors consider sending this to LGAQ.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Happy to support that, obviously. And thank you, Carly, and thank you, Sarah, for putting that together for us. Question, Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Matt. Yeah, totally support the officer's recommendation and the councillor's intent here. I'd just like to ask you a question. You are our representative for Central Queensland on the Local Government Association of Queensland Policy Committee and the Executive, etc. Does the LGAQ already do this in the LGAQ's capacity? Is it a focus for the LGAQ? And is it likely that there could be other motions coming forward in relation to the same matter for the state conference?
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Well, yes, as LGAQ and the Australian Local Government Association do this, but it doesn't hurt to have a motion to reinforce it. Motions at LGAQ are binding, so certainly it's more about encouraging the Queensland Government to put incentives or encouragement for women, particularly people from foreign lands or with language barriers that might think, well, I can't run for that role, that's not for me, to say to them, actually you can. There's not an onerous application process. Obviously there's a few boxes you have to tick regardless of where you come from, but if you can meet some criteria, you can run. And a lot of people, certainly particularly from across the seas, might think, well, I can't run for that, I have only been in Australia so many years. But if they're been naturalised, they're an Australian citizen, they're well and truly entitled to run for local government. And I think we'd certainly, as a LGAQ and as an Australian Local Government Association, absolutely encourage that, but it doesn't hurt to have a motion that enforces that more. Particularly, like, it's very difficult when you look at the statistics there about how many males mayors in Queensland. Well, you have a look in Rockhampton, when just recently, the election, I should say, not the by-election, but you had Margaret stood and won. In Gladstone, there was 2 men that run, so the winner was going to always be a man. So it's more about encouraging women to nominate. You can't decide the outcome, the community will decide the outcome. It's about encouraging people who may otherwise not run to put their hand up and let the community decide who they would like to be their councillors and their mayors.
I'm prepared to second the motion, but the intent of it is to be all-inclusive anyway.
I think that's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think also I have the state government does some programs, especially for women, but I'm actually doing one for women in local government at the moment, and it's great, but it's for women that have been elected already. So, and the same LGAQ has, a number of different training courses or things like that, but they're normally for people that have already been elected. So I can speak from my own experience, and I wasn't born in this country, but I have been here for longer than I have been in the country where I was born. So that's 22 years. So, and I never thought that I could actually run for anything to do with politics, because I didn't think I was going to be well received, or I didn't know the process, or I didn't know people. I mean, we all know that at the end of the day, what we do in most areas of life is about relationships and networks. So there is an opportunity here to start to address some of these barriers. So the perception of what it is to be a politician, the perception as to who do I need to know, who do I need to interact with, kind of have a mentor that comes from the same sector, politics or advocacy groups, and it's about having people have the confidence to engage, and it might not necessarily be in running for office as a politician, but it can also be as advocates in the different fields that they're passionate about, and it's not just about women. Again, it's about all the groups that are not actually represented in politics today. So we do know that if we have a look at our demographics and our population, and we have our census coming up soon, so that'd be wonderful to see. We do know that our political representation does not represent our communities and the people that live in this country. So I like to address that because it is known, it's been researched, and it is proven that a more diverse decision-making table will produce better outcomes for everybody. So, I think it'll be an interesting debate.
Thank you, Councillor. Good luck. Had a question?
No questions. I've got another motion. If we're finished with Councillor Muscat's motion.
I put that motion to the vote.
Oh, do you want
first
to
and
do
come
it
back to yours?
singly? Yep.
Yeah,
No.
is that right? I have a mover in Councillor Muscat, a second in Councillor Churchill. Is there any more debate on that motion before I go to Councillor Goodlucks? No, I put that motion. All in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. And now Councillor Goodluck.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have another motion which I have sent through to councillors. Given that it's not on the screen, I will just read it.
We're getting it up on the screen.
Oh, we are getting it on the screen, are we?
There it is there. Is that your motion?
Absolutely. I'll just read the... so the title of the motion is Heavy Vehicle Access Implications of Increased Restrictions on state-controlled roads. The motion is that the LGAQ lobby the Department of Transport and Main Roads to conduct a review of its decision to impose increased heavy vehicle restrictions on state-controlled roads and its subsequent enforcement activity, and work with councils to address increased heavy vehicle traffic on the local government road network that has resulted from this decision. There is a little bit of background and preamble to that motion, but the desired outcome is a one network view to heavy vehicle access that facilitates safe and efficient network access, particularly in our region. I think this will be an issue that transcends council boundaries across the state. I'm sure every other local government has similar issues. So happy to take any questions or queries from councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Goodluck. Questions, please. Councillor Muscat.
It's not a question. I just wanted to thank Councillor Goodluck for putting the time to do this and address some of the issues that we encounter in many different situations.
Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? No? No? Councillor O'Grady, no? Okay. You're moved by Councillor Goodluck then? Sorry, yeah, of course. You're moving your motion. And second to Councillor O'Grady online, I think. Thank you. I'll put that motion. All in favour? And that's carried as well. So that's our two motions, councillors. So they'll go to the conference. Councillor Goodluck and Muscat are attending conference, is that correct? And Councillor Hanson as well? Yes? Just trying to make sure that you're ready for the debate.
Councillor Hanson is
thank you.
actually receiving a service award or something.
It will be. It'll be 15 years. Councillor Hanson and Councillor Cameron's going as well. Excellent. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Carly. We'll move through the rest of the agenda. There we actually have no deputations today, so there's no councillor reports unless councillors would like to raise anything now. Councillor Hanson.
Just briefly congratulate the Baffle Creek Car and Muster and Bike Muster group. 2 Sundays ago, successful meeting, and Councillor Muscat was a big part of that that day. So congratulations to the team.
Councillor Muscat, would you like to add?
No, just quickly, and echoing what Councillor Hanson said, but I wanted to also again wish a wonderful birthday to the QCWA Matt Lackham branch that they just done 90 years on the weekend. So that was a great day, and it's inspiring and very fulfilling to see communities like Matt Lackham embrace a group of hardworking women and that have been working for so long, like 90 years. I mean, who makes it to 90 years? It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillors, any further comments? Thank you, Councillor Churchill.
Thanks, Mayor Matt. I had the fortunate pleasure of attending last night's Youth Council meeting. Exemplary. They're a wonderful working group of young people, but it was pleasing to know, and it's probably consistent in some ways with some aspects of Councillor Muscat's motion earlier for the LGAQ conference, that they're focusing on safety within our city and within our region, and the diversity of people, recognising that young people and older people as well, but are moving into our region, and as a result of that, understanding the importance of the inclusion and feeling safe in our community. So, a wonderful session. The only other one I wanted to raise was, in light of an apology aspect, is that the next council meeting in a fortnight's time, at this stage, myself and our economic development specialist will be attending and speaking at the Developing Northern Australia conference. So do I need to get an apology of my peers here today, or do I appropriately wait until that the next council general meeting?
Councillor Churchill, when your conference attendance was approved, that automatically provides an apology from the meeting, so there's no further resolution required. That's already been addressed.
Okay, thank you for that. That clarifies it. Thank you, Madam CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Can I just echo Councillor Muscat's comments regarding the Mount Larkham UCWA 90th birthday? Was a fantastic day, and 90 years of support for the local community there. It was great to see. The street parade was very well attended and everyone got out and about, and it's great to see the community really supporting the CWA. I just want to shout out to Dawn O'Dowd and Jean Peters, who collectively have about 110 years service to CWA, 2 ladies in Mount Larkham. All the ladies there do an amazing job, but there's 2 there that have done significant contributions. So I think Jean was about 40 years and Dawn was acknowledged for 70 years on the day, which is amazing. Before I close the council meeting, because we have no urgent business, no notices of motion, no confidential items, can I just put a shout out to Sean Dillon, who's the Mayor of Barcaldine. We were meant to be in Barcaldine today for the Bush Council's conference. Every hotel, motel, and even a camp was set up for delegates to attend, and unfortunately due to the COVID situation in southeast Queensland, that conference has been cancelled. So to all the grey nomads or friends who have got holidays or time, please go out and support our neighbours in Barcaldine. They must be doing it really tough right now to go from having the town completely booked out for a week to now having no tourists coming in terms of, well, tourists would still be, but no visitors for that conference. It will certainly have an impact on their local economy. Their conference hasn't been cancelled, it's been postponed, but it'll be next year now, unfortunately. So this is the situation we're living with at the moment, but I certainly know the small community of Barcaldine will appreciate anyone who can stop by. I know it's a little bit further west than some might travel, but if you can certainly make the trip out there to support Mayor Dillon and his community, that would be fantastic. Thank you, councillors. I'll now declare the meeting closed at 9:56 a.m.